So hello everybody and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depends where you're located, and welcome to a webinar about sustainability in fashion. Today I have great three panelists who will share with us their views, their career, their mission in life, and it's all connected to sustainability. In case you're not, in case you don't know who I am, my name is Liraz Cohen Mordechai, and I'm the founder of Fascinating by Leary. The company, basically, the mission of the company is to empower Israeli fashion globally and to tell the story of Israel through that. So what we do is that we operate both in North America, we do lectures and workshops, and then in Israel, we operate more as a educational tour company with tours and trips all across Israel. So whenever you can come visit, hopefully now with vaccines, that time will be soon, and maybe we'll see you this summer. Make sure to join a tour and come visit the three panelists in their places. So let's begin. I will just say that since this is a webinar and not just a regular Zoom, the way you can always communicate with us throughout this webinar is through the chat box. You can write your messages and we'll make sure to reply. At the end of the session, we will have also a Q&A part. So, sustainability in fashion. I want to start by just giving a little bit of explanation of what we mean when we're talking about sustainability and why is that so crucial when we're talking about it in the fashion world. So today I have with me Ari Katz, who is the co-founder of Roundwreck, Tsafra Perlmutter, who is the co-founder of Coco, Collective Collection, and Elanit Neutra, who is a multidisciplinary designer. And as I said, there are different ways to connect with me, Fascinating by Leary. So when we're talking about sustainability, one quote that really captured my attention was this one. And if you can go all the way to the end of it, it says, waste and the end of the day is a design flow. It doesn't exist in nature. And I think this is something super important to remember. When we're thinking of how to design clothes, how the fashion industry works. When we're thinking about the amount of waste that we have, this is something that should not happen because in the nature, this is not happening. And because of that, there are different outcomes for the idea of fast fashion and what became out of the fast fashion in our world. The first thing is, and probably the most alarming one, is that the fashion industry is the second most polluting industry in the world. So this is crazy. Maybe you're aware of it already. But when I heard this number, I said, oh my God, this is something that we have to do something about. And it's really something that us as consumers are learning how to live with the fact that we're buying more and more clothes. We're not wearing them that often. And basically we throw a ton of clothes. In Israeli fashion, this is also something that we see with the enter of fast fashion also to Israel. There was a decrease in the textile industry in terms of jobs. We see more decrease in importing of fabrics and threads and increase in importing of clothes and footwear. So we see that trend going on all around the world and it's disturbing. One thing that happened in 2013 was kind of a wake-up call for the entire world. And I mean the Rana Plaza factory collapse. So in Bangladesh, there was an 8-story building that many workers work in the textile industry from very well-known brands such as Mango and Primark and Bon Marché work there. And they were complaining that the building seems to not be in a good shape and it might collapse. But no one cared. They wanted them to continue working. And because of that, they said, if you're not feeling safe and you don't want to stay here, you can basically get fired and not have a job. So obviously, mainly the women who work there continue working. And in 2013, the building collapsed and there were over 1,000 people who got killed. This is considered the biggest textile disaster. And because of that, all of a sudden, the news, the media, everyone started to talk about where are we getting our clothes? What is the supply chain that's going on? We cannot just stay kind of blind without knowing what is going on. So why should brands care today about sustainability? So we see it as a very trendy kind of a thing to talk about sustainability and to say how important it is. Our panelists today are actually dealing with that for many, many years, even before it was a trend. But a few things that really makes brands more aware of it and pay attention to it more is, first of all, when we're talking about McKinsey and Business of Fashion magazine, they have their annual report. They call it the State of Fashion. And in 2020, one of the trends that they predicted, and that was not the first year, was sustainability first, meaning that you need to prioritize sustainability and in your brand. What else? When we're talking about the Generation Z, this is the generation of consumers now, and they have increased in awareness. They want to make sure that the brands that they're choosing is ethical, that they care about the same social issues that they care about. And also, when we think about employees, the majority of the people who are working in retail are in the same age range, so they are pressuring their brands as well. Another thing is climate disruption. We see that with fires in California. We see that in many other things that makes the business model more vulnerable. And lastly, with regulation, because even if you didn't care about any of these things until this point, at the end of the day, in a few years from now, regulations will make sure that the brands need to follow whatever they think should be right for climate. So they needed to prepare for it right now. So there are different brands globally that are working and putting sustainability as like the #1 thing for them. We have Reformation, Patagonia is a big one. They even changed their mission and their statement from basically just cause no unnecessary harm to we're in business to save the planet, which is very ambitious of them. But one thing that I want to keep in mind when we're talking about all of these brands and when you're seeing all of these words of the trendy words about sustainability is greenwashing, and the idea that many times the brands understand that this is a trend, that this is something that they need to follow, but it's more about how they market themselves, it's more about their huge billboards, but not necessarily rooted still within the infrastructures of the business model itself. So we will talk about all of these things today, but first I would like our panelists to introduce themselves. So maybe let's start with Tsafra.
So I have founded I'm coming from the business very, very long time ago. I've started as a fashion designer. Liraz, you should run with the screens. Great. And about 8 years ago, I founded Coco as a hybrid platform that is based on crowdfunding, sustainable fashion, and its marketing strategy is based on chain of home stores. I've started a business with my colleague Dalia. We both were fashion designers in Castro, which is a huge company here in Israel. And I think that we understood very, very well how the business works and what are I would say, what cannot be changed and what maybe can be changed, but it's not very easy as the business is not very high technology. So next. We believe that we have to follow as few as possible some rules of sustainability or social business as we saw it. And we thought that actually, first of all, we want to build a business that will belong to many, many, many others and not only to one you know, one very talented designer or one very rich lady or whatever. So we wanted the company to belong to its customers, actually. We believe that we should work under transparency, which means every quarter we send a report about how the company is working to our partners. We wanted the company to be sort of equal. I was born in a kibbutz, and I thought that the economical business model of a kibbutz was great, only the implementation was a little bit problematic, as people doesn't really want to live together and eat together and sleep together if they want to work together and earn money together. So this too much togetherness, I think that brought some problems, but not when you are talking about a business model. And of course, sustainability, we refer to a very specific idea in the business. And I'll talk about it a bit later. And we thought that giving back is part of the business, etc. Now, I think all know this very famous picture, and we all understand that this is the problem, and only 15% of it can be solved by, please click, Miraz.
I did.
You can rather recycle, you can use recycled raw materials, you can decide that you buy only secondhand, you can decide that you donate all these garments that are not necessary, needed or sold. But then again, all this will solve only 15% of the problem. We wanted actually to play with the idea how to solve the other problem, the other 85%, and that's actually to produce less, because that's the major problem. I think that Earth doesn't really care if a t-shirt is buried after it costs $200 or $2. A t-shirt is a t-shirt, and it's polluting Earth almost the same. So what we actually do is that we upload to our website every design that we want to produce, and we offer it with a discount for sale as pre-order. The fact, what happened to my screenshot?
No, now you can continue talking.
I don't think so. I think that I didn't finish the, anyway.
Continue.
Anyway, so yes, what we wanted to achieve is actually, instead of like everybody else, instead of sell what we produced, we wanted to produce what we sell. And that's the idea. So every design is uploading to pre-order, and then we, with an algorithm that we are still working on it, because we are very, very small business, which means that we are a very small laboratory, which means the data is gathered very, very slow. And that's why our algorithm that is based on AI takes very long time to actually learn the results. But it's there, and we know that it's in a very good direction. So yes, the next, please, and last, Miraz, can you please click? Yes, we finished. Okay, so that's what we actually achieved. For 8 years, we are staying with 5% yearly waste, comparing to about 25% that every brand or average brand that you know, like from the big ones to the small ones actually. We have about 1,520 partners, which are people that invested in the company and actually getting all the investment back with goods and lifetime discounts. We got seed investment from an impact VC, because it was very important for us to be declared as an impact business, and we have about 12 showrooms, 2 stores from different sides, and 1 website. And these are our partners. You can click to the next, and you'll see them. All regular people, regular ladies that really buy or use clothes, and they decided to join and be part of our business, of Coco. So that's Coco for the moment.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tsafra, for sharing. We already see that people are writing that this is very smart, and Tsafra is absolutely right. Ari, maybe we'll go to you. Can you share with us a little bit about your initiative?
Sure, if you can just enable me to share my own screen.
You're good to go?
All righty. Okay, so I'm Ari. I'm the co-founder of Round Rack, a sustainable textile platform. I'm probably the newest of the bunch into sustainability. I could actually probably trace that to an exact day and moment that happened. That was on October 11th, 2018, when I was severely wounded in a terror attack while on military reserve duty. And as many people in similar moments, I woke up from surgery the next day and I asked myself, what am I doing with my life, right? Searching for meaning. Now, it just so happened to be that at the time, I sort of had this hobby on the side of buying and selling secondhand, Japanese mostly, or Japanese Americana. I would order from proxy sites in Japan and then sell on the various secondary marketplaces. And the truth is, it was more of a means to afford luxury fashion for myself. But then suddenly I found myself in the hospital, and my wife actually recommends maybe you should go to Japan, do some soul searching. So I went to Japan in 2019, did some soul searching, but obviously wanted to explore more into Japanese secondhand fashion. And I really got into sustainability through there. And the Japanese secondary market is insane. It's practically streamlined. They have luxury shops and department stores showcasing this fashion. One might actually think it's regular fashion shops. And I set myself a goal to go back home and perhaps import that aspect of their culture to Israel and to the West. And I got together with a former colleague of mine, Alex, who was an environmentalist, and we actually were on the founding team of a financial tech startup. And we founded a startup that at the time was called CloudRack. And it was basically a resale tool, a way for secondhand resellers to manage their sales across different platforms, with the goal that could also turn into somewhat of a virtual closet, which means anyone can manage the inventory they have in their closets and basically know what the value is at any given moment, and we would help them resell it. However, as time went on, we realized that the people that were more interested in this service were actually bulk resellers, and we felt that it doesn't align with our vision. It basically just promotes overconsumption. And we realized that we needed, in order to really create impact, we want to have the collaboration of the retail sector, the fashion sector. And then we developed a tool for e-commerce fashion sites to be able to offer buybacks to their customers by the way of resale. So what would happen is you would be perhaps on their website, and then we would prompt this pop-up saying, hey, we noticed that you've bought something from here previously, and we'll actually offer you a voucher for the return of that item towards your next purchase. So we would be able to value that given item, also with the help of a chatbot that would ask you a little bit about the condition. And we would then go and sort of research digitally, or our algorithm would research the value of that on secondary marketplaces. And then we would go and collect the item, resell it on those marketplaces, and then reimburse the brand for the voucher it gave you. Now, interestingly enough, COVID hits, and this type of business would demand a lot of logistics, so someone had to shelf it. At the time, we actually happened to be taking part of a circular program, educational program at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which is based in the UK, but it's probably safe to say it's one of the leaders in the world when it comes to sustainability and circular economy education. And we met a textile agent through there, or actually a sustainable textile agent. And we basically realized through her and through the course that, and this Tsafra mentioned a bit as well, that it is important to deal with the afterlife of products, but the truth is, if you really want to create impact, you have to target the design stage. And specifically, we felt there is a lot of potential in choosing materials. And the truth is, it turns out that many of these materials and processes already exist. So we were asking ourselves, why aren't fashion brands today adopting these processes and fabrics? Well, in today's supply chain, it's practically impossible to follow and to change. And furthermore, we realize that there is a trust issue, which means at the end of the day, fashion is about creativity, it's about emotion. And a lot of these fashion designers out there and brands were worried that these sustainable alternatives weren't on par with the standards they're used to. And therefore, we created the Sustainable Textile platform, which does just that. It helps you source sustainable fabrics and reassures you that it's at the right standards, whether it's assuring you where the origin, where it's from, and of course, what it's capable of doing, the characteristics and the features of the fabric, and of course, anything to do with sustainability, such as traceability, certifications, and of course, the more simple things like, does it fit your price range and the quantity you had in mind? So we'll just ask you a few questions. What is the intended application? What aspect of sustainability do you care about? Because we realize we're not going to educate brands in what they see is sustainable. And it could be, if you're a fast fashion brand, what might be relevant for you, like if it's compostable or biodegradable, is less relevant for the luxury market, where they might care about durability. And then, based again on your target price, we'll offer you the relevant fabrics with a breakdown that will help you make a decision. We've got a lot of positive feedback on that. We're currently testing it with some of the customers that our now co-founder, Sustainable Textile Agent, already has. We're very involved in the Israeli tech market. We're currently taking part of a fashion tech incubator in Paris, where we've won the IBM Future Innovation Award, and we hope to launch next quarter. So thank you.
Incredible, Ari. Thank you so much. Thank you. So I already have a ton of questions, but before I'll start, Elanit, I would like you to present yourself. Do you want to start with a video first, or with
I think so.
You think so?
Yes.
Okay, so let's see video.
אתה זוכר שאמרתי לך שאני אוריד גלגל ואז יראו שעשיתי ממנו תיק? אני מעצבת תיקים, רהיטים, accessories. די. הצמיג, כמה שיותר להכניס אותו הביתה. התחושה שלו והעוצמה שלו. זה קיר שהצבתי במיוחד, רואים פה שאריות אפילו של אדמה, קורוזיה. דרך אגב, אני הכי חשוב לי פונקציונליות, לפני היופי והשחור הזה, האפור הזה, תמיד. זהו, יש תודה יותר. עד כמה שאפשר למתוח את העצמי.
Okay.
Okay. So I will introduce myself. My name is Elanit Neutra. And Neutra is my family name. It's not nature, as people ask me, usually they ask. And I am a designer with the material. I'm all the time thinking that I didn't choose the material, it chose me. And it started 20 years ago. And it's very hard to see.
What is the problem?
Something happened, but now we are looking at a couple of furniture that I made from the inner tube. And this is, for example, a table that, what happened? This is the...
Okay, we're going to start from the beginning and we'll see if it works.
Okay. So you can just...
Okay.
Okay, so I'm doing it for 20 years already. And it started because I was looking for something with value, or I study a lot of design, like fashion design and graphic design as well, and working all the time in the industry. And when I started to build my company, I made a lot of, like you saw the movie, accessories and wallets, and you can continue on. And everything is black, as you see, and I have my own suppliers. So some of them collect me on the road or the inner tube. Yes. And did you ask something? No? Okay. And what else?
I think we'll stop sharing because the
Okay.
image is not working that good. So maybe I'll ask all of you, working in the fashion sustainable world, what do you think today is the #1 issue that need to be addressed in the fashion industry when it comes to sustainability?
I think that the main issue is the inventory. And that's one thing that needs regulation. For example, today when companies are publishing their results, so they say about how much inventory they have in dollars. You don't know what does it mean. You don't know what percentage it is from what they purchased. It's actually a black box. Nobody knows what it is. Nobody knows how many, and I'm telling you, how many cartoons are shifted by trains to be destroyed or to be shipped to Africa. So I think that this is #1. And anytime that this will be under the radar and no one will actually give it numbers, so as much as you will tell me about how a footprint is affected, I don't know how to calculate footprint by myself. When I buy a t-shirt, I don't even understand what does it mean. And there is a very, very limit, you know, when I was working in a previous, so we used to say that Italian fabrics, raw materials, considered to be very, very high class. And we always used to say in the industry that this very, very high class, this premium, has a number. And the number is how much the consumer will be willing to pay additional for the Italian fabric instead of other fabrics. And this number was maximum 10% more. So I think that the problem to be solved is within the main field of the industry with the big brands, and the only way to solve it again is by regulation.
So I'd like to continue what Tsafra says, and I think when talking about regulation, it's about having an industry standard basically to measure what is sustainability, right? Because today, it's enough that you decide to use a bit of recycled polyester, and then you have a bunch of logos on your tags, and you believe in recyclability and circularity. So, and again, that's exactly what greenwashing is. So there needs to be an industry standard of what is considered eco-friendly, what are the expectations, what's the minimum, and basically different levels you can reach so that the consumer can understand how good this really is. Because today there isn't any fashion brand that doesn't claim to be sustainable. Everyone claims to be on the road to sustainability because, again, they might have a capsule collection that has a bit of organic content. So I think it's very much about industry alignment and standardization.
Thank you. So regulation, standardization. Thanks. Elanit, what do you think is the major issue?
When I started to make my own products, and I didn't dream to change the world, but I think it became necessary because we need to understand that I'm really worried about the human survivor and what we are, all the artificial intelligence, and is very dangerous to the end of humanity. And I'm taking it for this place because I'm very dramatic, as you see the black, and also, yeah, I think it's, there is lots of conflicts when I design and when I want really to make my brand to be more, how do you say? I'm not sure how to.
You can say in Hebrew and I will translate.
Circular, I believe in the circular economy. That's very important, I think. So that we'll know exactly that we have waste and we'll take it over. And for example, people wants to buy all the time new things, like if you have a new cell phone and you know that you can design it and you can open and take from it the gold, that inside there is small gold, but at the same time, they don't design it as a Lego, that you can open and take it and take all the parts and make something else from it. Mm-hmm. So to think all the time.
Outside the box.
Yeah. That's true.
So Elanit, in that sense, you're working with tubes, and you're working with tubes with tires for a long time now. Have you ever thought of changing the material or adding a new material?
I have no choice. Sometimes I feel that I have no choice. I don't want to make it, but because there is lots of limitation, so I need to take another material that it will be not heavy or a lot of weight, and it's sometimes the thickness. I think I'm doing it as a low-tech process. And if my laboratory had a lot of money, I could make it, in another level, of course, but that's why I'm all the time trying to make, because my word is so creative, I can take it to another level as furniture, for example.
Right.
And
products.
Yeah, another product. Yeah, variety.
Amazing. Talking about materials, so Ari, your company now, your startup is basically sourcing materials, and you have to be always in the know of new materials, new sustainable materials. Can maybe you share with us more exciting materials that we should look for in the next couple of years, maybe?
Yeah, so the truth is that there's basically new materials every day, and it's really not my domain. Luckily, we have the expert on the team that deals with it. But I'm super surprised of hearing of all these new materials. Recently, discovering myself the cactus leather, which is becoming more and more popular amongst the luxury brands. Of course, there's also Texon, which is a few years old, which is a washable paper, which actually also gets a bit of a characteristic of leather over time. So it's just it's super interesting. And by the way, that creates, I would say, on the other side of the industry, the designers themselves, the brands themselves, if fashion is always about understanding the limitations and potentials of fabric, brands now are missing some of that knowledge. So instead of outsourcing it, we sort of enable them to, quickly be educated and to help them, with that aspect. So that's another thing that we do.
Amazing. Tsafra, going back to you, you mentioned that both you and Dalia, your co-founder, started from Castro. That was the beginning. So you truly experienced the fashion industry in a different point of view before. What was the trigger that made you and Dalia change your perspective and decide to open Coco?
Well, I think after 2 or 20 years in the market, you understand that no one is really waiting for a new brand. So if you want to do something new in the business of clothing, in the business of fashion, you better have a very, very good reason or very different way of doing it in order to justify the amount of efforts that needs to be put in a new brand. So for me, it was actually the social protest in 2011, where I was really thrilled and amazed by this energy. And immediately I started to think, okay, but what do you do with it except of laying in the tents or manifesting with, these fantastic words? What is the economical action that needs to be done? And this is how we started thinking about, okay, what a new brand should be and what form it needs to take in order to justify but I want to talk about something else, and this is about the consumers. I think there are two edges here that actually are the key performance to this to the sustainability issue in fashion. First is the consumers. The consumers that cannot, we as consumers, it's not you, it's us, we as a consumers, we cannot hold ourselves when we see a good bargain, when we see a good deal. That's life, this human nature, that's how we are built. And the fact is that if we used to spend about $100, $150 monthly 20 years ago, we still use the same amount monthly, but we buy about 30% more clothes than what we used to buy before. So this is because, the business went, the production of raw materials and garments went offshore to places that we don't know and we cannot control. And designers and companies and customers stayed in the other side of the world that actually all they care about is what they get and how much they pay for it. So I think that the customers, the consumers from one hand, and the finance world from the other hand, that does not encourage or does not punish companies that are doing so much harm of this many waste, I think these two parts of the business is actually what limits the, changing it for the moment.
So one of my questions was, what do you think us as consumers can do to really change it? And I think you really answer it. Ari, Elanit, what do you think about the consumers? Everyone who's listening to us obviously care deeply about sustainability, but what can we do starting from today or starting from tomorrow to make a change, a small change in the way that we consume, in the way that we make our daily life?
So I recently read a very interesting statistic, and that is that 40% of consumers in the past year dropped a brand over sustainability concerns. And that is a huge scare for brands. A lot of brands are used to have loyalty from, even from the millennials, but especially from, Generation X and the baby boomers. So the fact that, if you vote with your wallets and they can feel it, that's a huge concern for them. But I think the bigger problem is, obviously consumers have a lot of influence. I think the fact that for brands, it's so easy to get away with communicating the fact that they're sustainable is the biggest problem. And therefore, I think it's very much about pressuring governments, basically. And again, it's not regulating the industry, it's regulating something very, very specific, and that is the communication of sustainability and the standardization of how to measure sustainability. So I think that is a huge first step, and I'm hoping that everything else will follow.
Great, thank you. Elanit, do you want to add anything?
I just want to share that sometimes I feel like that my consumers are, maybe it's Israeli, I think, mostly, but they don't appreciate well, and that the process is so hard, and so they look at some products and they can say why it's so expensive, for example. And I think what the corona showed us this period of time is to understand and to really change our awareness and change our values mostly, and more deeply as we can. And I hope that they will, that's it.
No, you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right, Elanit. And both of us were talking about it also in a private conversation about the change of values of people changing their mindset. And maybe this is the time for sustainability, because even if Business of Fashion and McKinsey were saying that sustainability should be a priority as part of their report, I think that everything was aiming towards the next few years, but now everything is expediting, is making it faster and faster. So brands should keep up because us as consumers, we want more. We want more meaning in our life, and we want more meaning in the brands that we choose and in everything else. And this is also part of this all Fashion That Matters series of conversations, that it is important to shed light in other topics as well and find some meaning. So we have about 10 more minutes for our conversation, and we have a lot of different things that we didn't have the chance to talk about, but I do want to open it up for a conversation and questions from the audience. I see that you're already very active, and I'm so happy about that. So great questions, everyone who asked, and thank you, Ari, that you can do multitasking while you're talking and also answering. If you have more questions, please write them in the chat box right now. I will say for the meanwhile that if we're talking about the pandemic and COVID, besides the mindset, we see different changes that are happening also in business models. Ari mentioned that transformation that is startup went through. And I think, Tsafra, you can add more of what COVID did to the way that you're operating and everything with that.
Well, I must say that for us, we found out that COVID was a miracle. Because it's actually accelerated the effectiveness of our showrooms, because we opened, the idea of open, I think that everybody knows what is a shop in a home shop or something like that, right? It's not an Israeli invention, it appears everywhere. But I think the idea of making a chain of home stores, that's something that is revolutionary. So that means that you are taking the positive or the benefits of a big organization, and you actually implement it on very, very small businesses. Now, every showroom acts as a sole independent business, and they are responsible to bring or to make their sales, which means they are a bridge for us. They are a bridge from the consumer to the website, to the online shopping, that we know that it's going there, but still people, every one of us heard this sentence that I cannot shop online, I have to touch and try. That's right, until you cannot. When you cannot, you find out that you can do lots of things that you didn't think that you could do before. So we thought that in order to get to the online, to make online 50% of the business, 80% of the business, you need a bridge, and that's the showrooms. And actually in the COVID-19, when people kept apart from one side, but they kept very, very close in the neighborhoods, in their families, in the buildings. You see much more close relations there. And I think that's what COVID showed us, that actually instead of very, very big centers and very big or small neighbors, small communities that really have to act together.
Yes, neighborhoods thrive and communities.
So we are going to finish 2020 even better than 2019, which is, as I said, a miracle.
That is a miracle. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm very happy for you. Elanit, do you want to share with us? You have one store in a very premier location for tourists in Israel. How is COVID kind of affected you, and do you see any new opportunities coming now?
I can show you my shop. I can say that I have some new stuff that I understand from the COVID time is it's hard. At the same time, it's opportunity to understand lots of things for me to think different, I think. And but it's hard to me to explain what I want to say, so
I think it's very hard to be a designer nowadays, and maybe you see some light at the end of the tunnel with more. I think to refer also to what Tsafra was saying, that I see that Karen is asking where is the shop. It's in Mitcham Noga, right by Jaffa.
Yeah.
And I think that now we don't have a lot of tourists, obviously, but even I experienced that with the fashion tours that we're doing for Israelis at the moment. We see that there is a bigger appreciation of buying local, of supporting the local designers, of being part of like a bigger community. And I think it really connects to what Tsafra was saying as well before about the sense of community and the people who are feeling more safe going to places that they know the designer, that they know the owner, that they know the process as well. So maybe a few words of wisdom from each one of you before we'll wrap up the conversation. Ari, maybe you want to start?
I mean, in continuation to what everyone was saying, I mean, definitely COVID demonstrated the fragility of the industry as a whole, and then it also got the brands and the industry thinking that they need to look forward to the next big challenge and sort of handle that first. So I think, at least from what I see in the industry from a lot of the big players, the people within the brands understand the magnitude of this challenge, and the hope is that they'll be able to trickle that down to the brand as a brand and almost create a chain reaction, because that's what fashion is very much about, FOMO. And then basically everyone's going to catch on, and again, hopefully simultaneously with regulation kicking in, and that's happening as well, we'll be at a better place a year from today.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add anything?
I just hope that after we speak about it so much, I really hope that people will start to do something, and as a consumer, because I think that small brands today are almost the only ones that really deal with it, and the big ones are basically dealing with greenwashing because they have this struggling with huge quantities and very limited price that we as consumers are willing to pay. So I think that if we are talking about us as consumers, so I think that it's either don't buy, or buy secondhand, or buy in full prices, or at least buy in slow fashion. Get it in advance. Don't push for the delivery to come after 1 day or 3 days. I think that as much as all of us will slow down a bit better, I think that we'll see much more sustainability in our clothes, not only in our words.
I totally agree. I think what we're all saying here is that there need to be powers from two parts, so top down and bottom up. So regulations and standardizations and everything coming up from top down to the brands, and then us as consumers, we need to increase our voices. And Jennifer here is saying amen to Tsafra. So I will say thank you for everyone who joined us for the second part of Fashion That Matters series of conversations. Next week, we will have another conversation exactly at the same time, Sunday at 10 a.m. New York time, and 5 p.m. Israel time. So we will have a conversation about feminism in fashion with Shachar Avnet, a designer who also dressed Beyonce, and Nofar Chatuka, who owns the brand Cookie, who experience and explore Yemenism, so feminism with Jewish women. So thank you again, Tsafra, Ari, and Elanit. Thank you for doing the amazing job that you're doing day by day. And thank you for enlightening our knowledge of everything that is about fashion and sustainability. If you like, I will share the information how to find the 3 great panelists here, so you can continue the conversation and continue following them in the future. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.